So they're finally here. And before we have our reviews go live very soon, I wanted to do sort of like a buyer's guide to see what are some of the options that are out there for these Snapdragon-based CoPilot Plus PCs. I mean, you can go and buy one right now, but what makes one of these devices different from another? And also, are there any options that are better suitable for your needs?
Now, if history has taught us anything, ARM-based devices have focused on delivering a budget solution. That means pretty basic build quality, low-end displays, and a bunch of other trade-offs. But now with this CoPilot Plus generation, things have suddenly changed. All of a sudden, Qualcomm has a chip that could technically compete with the best out there, and laptop manufacturers are stepping up their designs to align with that reality. And that leads to prices that start at $1,000 US and run all the way up past the $1,600 mark. But when you see the features some of these brings to the table, well, there's still a lot of value there. There are also a few other common threads throughout all the laptops with the X Elite and X Plus chips, and one of those threads is Qualcomm's help in making this video possible. Anyways, we've got to talk about the CoPilot Plus branding first. Now, to get it, a laptop's processor needs to have an NPU or neural processing unit that's able to deliver 40 or more tera operations per second for local AI workloads. Anything with less than that will get the regular CoPilot branding, but those will have cloud-based AI features that require a monthly subscription. Also, every option here will have at least 60 gigabytes of memory. I mean, sure, 8 gigabytes is a crime for any 2024 device, especially ones with Windows 11, but local AI processing takes a ton of memory resources, making 16 gigabytes the bare minimum for CoPilot Plus PCs. I'm actually curious to see how much of those system resources is allocated towards these AI workloads, but yeah, definitely stick around to our full performance analysis later when these laptops get into our performance labs. Now, there's also a lot of other things included with these laptops as well, like USB 4 at 40 gigabits per second, Wi-Fi 7, high-resolution displays, super high-quality webcams, memory clocked at a minimum of 8,448 megatransfers per second, the ability to run in a semi-passive mode, and Bluetooth 5.3. And speaking of Bluetooth 5.3, a lot of people are excited about aptX HD compatibility, but it isn't automatically included with every device. It is ultimately up to laptop manufacturers to turn it on or not. So if you want to be certain it's there, just look at the Snapdragon Sound or aptX logos on the box, or if it's on the laptop specs online. Okay, so now that we've set the ground rules for laptops with Qualcomm's Snapdragon X series processors, let me share you some of the laptops we were able to get our hands on at Computex. So first up, we have the XPS 13. From the outside, it features the same design ID as the previous generations with the unibody CNC milled aluminum chassis, the edge-to-edge keyboard with the touch capacitive buttons at the top, and the seamless glass trackpad. It's super thin, coming in at 0.6 inches or 15.3 millimeters, and it weighs around 2.6 pounds or 1.2 kilos.
This laptop continues Dell's trend of sacrificing ports for an ultra-thin chassis, and in this case, there are only two USB-C 4 ports. The screen on this laptop is pretty standard. You get a 16:10 Full HD plus 120 Hz panel, which is dynamic, so it will shift between 30 and 120 Hz. And it's supposed to get around 500 nits of peak SDR brightness performance. Now, Dell is offering multiple SKUs of the XPS 13, so the base model starts at $1,300, which gets you a pretty basic 1080p display, but you can upgrade to a Quad HD resolution or even an OLED option, and I believe the memory can be configured up to 64 gigabytes, so that's certainly going to add up in cost.
Next up, we have the HP Omnibook X. Now, this is probably one of my favorite laptops from the show, as it comes in this beautiful ceramic white finish. I believe the chassis uses a combination of magnesium and recycled aluminum materials, but it feels great in the hands. I love the font styling on the keycaps, along with a few accented colors that spread around the frame. It weighs less than 3 pounds or 1.35 kilos, and is only 0.57 inches or 14.8 millimeters thin. The port selection is far better than the XPS 13, so you get two USB-C Type-C ports, one of which supports 40 gigabits per second pass-through, a full-size Type-A port, and a headphone jack. HP also fitted the Omnibook X with a sharper 2.2K IPS touch display, so while it is sharper than the XPS, it's a tad dimmer and it also runs at 60 Hz. As for pricing, this thing is $100 cheaper than the XPS 13, making it one of the most desirable thin and light laptops in the market. And the specs include the flagship X Elite CPU with 60 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of SSD, and a 60 watt-hour battery. Next up, we have the Acer Swift 14 AI. Now, this features a predominantly plastic chassis with some aluminum materials, giving it a less premium feel compared to the XPS and the Omnibook. Now this thing weighs approximately 3 pounds or 1.36 kilos, and it's the thickest among the peers in this lineup. Now despite its bulk, the Swift 14 includes a larger 75 watt battery and offers an extensive range of ports, including 2 USB-C 4 ports, 2 USB Type-A Gen 1 ports, and a headphone jack. The screen on this spans across 14.5 inches, comes in IPS Quad HD Plus resolution with 120Hz refresh rate, though its peak HDR brightness is limited to 350 nits. It also features a standard keyboard and a basic trackpad, but interestingly, you'll notice this cool design embedded on the top right-hand side of the trackpad. Now this is an activity indicator that lights up when the CoPilot function is active. You also get 2 configurations with this laptop. The base model starts at $1,100 with the X Plus 10-core CPU, while the higher-end model is priced at $1,250, which includes the X Elite processor. Now stepping up in size, we have the ASUS Vivobook S15. Now this comes in a super thin form factor at 0.63 inches or 16 millimeters, and it only weighs around 3.13 pounds or 1.4 kilos. From a design standpoint, you're getting a super slim package that's crafted out of aluminum, looks super sleek and minimal, and taking a look at the interior space, it comes with a full-size keyboard and a pretty large trackpad, which isn't glass. Interestingly, ASUS decided to add a single-zone RGB lighting system for the keyboard. But on the positive side, when you look at the connectivity, it's pretty stacked. So you've got a full-sized HDMI 2.1 port, 2 USB 4 ports, microSD card reader, headphone jack, and flipping over to the right, you get 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports. I mean, seriously, this thing has the most ports out of all the other laptops that we've looked at so far. Now, knowing ASUS, they've always pushed the boundaries when it comes to display technology. So the Vivobook S15 boasts a 15.6-inch 3K 120Hz Lumina OLED panel with super slim bezels. Pricing for this thing is expected to be around $1,300. That can get you the 12-core Core X Elite chip. Now, Qualcomm isn't specifically catering these processors to laptops. They're also transitioning them into two-in-one devices. So we have the Surface Pro, and this one's pretty straightforward. The Surface line has always been known to provide a versatile two-in-one solution for people who want a sleek, ultra-thin design with great performance. Now, the design hasn't changed all that much compared to the previous generations. The build quality is top-notch considering this is an anodized aluminum enclosure. It also comes in 4 tasteful colors, and given this is a tablet, it is incredibly thin, coming in at 0.37 inches, which is 9.3 millimeters, and it weighs less than 2 pounds, which is less than a kilo. Now, the main star of the show here is, of course, that gorgeous 13-inch Pixel Sense 3K dynamic display that can go up to 120 Hz. It also has touch support. And in terms of pricing, it's $999 for the base model with a 10-core Snapdragon X Plus CPU. But keep in mind that it comes with an LCD display that's slightly less color accurate compared to the OLED panel that I mentioned earlier, which only comes in the X Elite chip. And that one's going to set you back a lot of money. We're talking close to $1,500. Now, the other thing that I should also mention is that when you purchase a Surface Pro device, you're also expected to get the Surface accessories to sort of complete that package. So that includes the detachable keyboard and the slim stylus pen. So that in itself is going to add an extra $250 to the $999 or the $1,499 or $1,599 tablet itself, so it can add up quite a bit. But for those of you who are not willing to spend that kind of money for a tablet, ASUS has a pretty great solution as well. This is their ProArt PZ13. This might give the Surface Pro a run for its money, mostly because of how much you're getting for that $899 to $1,000 price point. So that includes the device itself, the detachable keyboard, the magnetic stand, a stylus, and a backpack. That's a lot of accessories for that price point. Now, if you look at the design standpoint, this thing is crafted out of CNC milled aluminum that's only 9 millimeters or 0.35 inches thin, and it weighs around 850 grams or 1.8 pounds. They've also added a nano black coating to resist fingerprints. Unfortunately, there isn't a built-in kickstand like the Surface Pro, but they do include a detachable magnetic stand to assist with propping up the device on your lap or on a desk. There's also a little loop attached to the device that can store the stylus. The detachable keyboard itself does come with a glass trackpad, and it does feel pretty good in the hand. The keys also have pretty good feedback. It's very similar to what you get with the Surface Pro devices. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the PZ13 is the cooling system. So this one's actually pretty unique. So what you get here is an additional fan intake, which allows the hardware to breathe just a little bit better. Now, considering this is a ProArt tablet, ASUS is catering this towards creators as well. So when you are a creator like myself, the first thing you value is a great display. So this one has a 2.8K Lumina OLED panel, which covers 100% DCI-P3 coverage, and it's got a Delta E a value of less than 1, since this is Pantone validated from the factory. Now, the port selection is pretty limited on this tablet considering its size, so you get 2 USB 4 ports, although one of them, including a microSD card reader, is hidden underneath a silicone cover, since ASUS is marketing this as IP52 water and dust resistant. And in terms of specs, this one is expected to come with Qualcomm's X Plus 10-core CPU.
All right, everybody, so I guess it's my turn to jump in because we just got this into the lab, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. This is the Yoga Slim 7X, and what it does is it takes all the things that we love about Lenovo's Yoga lineup and adds them into a laptop that has Qualcomm's Snapdragon chips. And for the time being, like a lot of these laptops, it'll be limited to the X1E 78100 processor, but it can be optioned all the way up to 32 gigs of memory and a 1 terabyte SSD. And you got to check out those prices because it's almost a no-brainer to choose those upgrades if you're ordering this laptop. But the real star of this show is portability, since this is one of the thinnest and lightest Yogas ever, and it comes in this amazing looking cosmic blue. But that almost razor thin profile doesn't mean you'll get cut rate features either, especially when it comes to the battery and the screen. Because when you compare it to some of the other laptops that Eber talked about, Lenovo's been able to pack a pretty large 73 watt-hour unit into the 7X, and that goes along with a 14.5-inch 3K 90Hz OLED that's bright and beautiful. And there's one other thing that needs to be talked about here, and that's something that's hiding in plain sight. That's this. It's a webcam bump. Finally, we're going to start seeing some laptops that come out with high resolution and very good webcams. There's a few other surprises too, like Lenovo, for some reason, ditching USB-A, and instead they're going with a completely USB-C approach with every port rated for a full 40 gigabits per second. And there's one other sacrifice: no headphone jack. But look, before you go crying in the comments below that Lenovo is leaving you high and dry without all those additional ports or even an audio jack, they're thinking about you, because you get a dongle, and with that dongle you get VGA, HDMI, USB-A port, and your headphone jack. So at least there's that. I just wish that Lenovo said, okay, look, we're gonna make this as thin as possible, but we're still gonna add USB-A, because HP did it with the Omnibook, with this sort of handy dandy little flip cover on their USB-A port while keeping everything super thin on the side. Now, speaking of other laptops that we want to talk about, there's also the Samsung Galaxy Book4 Edge, because I actually think this one is pretty important in the grand scheme of things. We haven't got any hands-on time with it yet, but there are a few major callouts here. First of all, it comes in 14-inch or 16-inch form factors, and that 16-inch one is the only Snapdragon-based laptop using the highest-end X1E 84100 chip. All the others that have been announced use either the 78 or 80 version, and that's important since the 78 is the entry-level CPU in the X Elite lineup, which gets cut down clock speeds, no dual-core boost, and a slower GPU. Meanwhile, Samsung is using the highest-end SKU, but that also makes the Edge the most expensive CoPilot Plus PC out there. At least one is decked out with its maxed out spec. But hopefully sometime in the near future we see a lot more laptops roll out with that highest end CPU, because I think if there's anything out there that can make this laptop lineup shine, it's that one CPU. Now we're gonna go back to Eber here because he's gonna talk about my, I guess, favorite topic, and that would be AI.
Now, one of the key achievements Qualcomm is particularly proud of is their advancements in their integrated neural processing unit, which is the NPU. I previously discussed some of the practical use cases in a separate video, which you can check out right over here, but this time Qualcomm has introduced additional features. For instance, applications like DJ Pro now incorporates a larger neural network, enabling DJs to isolate and manipulate vocals, drums, and instruments in any song in real time. Pretty impressive, actually. There's also a built-in live translation feature that supports 44 languages, providing subtitles directly above the content you're viewing, including online meetings. I'm actually really curious to put these to the test, and let us know if you're a DJ, do you find this stuff interesting? So that pretty much sums up this video. We have a lot more content for the Snapdragon X Elite and X Plus laptops coming your way, including a bunch of reviews and deep dives into the architecture, so definitely stay tuned for those. But I do want to know, which one of these devices are you most excited about? Or are you just going to wait for a little while to see how Windows on Snapdragon and CoPilot Plus ecosystem evolve? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm Eber with Hardware Canucks. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.